Hey there, welcome. We are live on YouTube and Instagram, and we are going to be going live on, Facebook and YouTube. We're going live on Instagram as well. Hey there, we're live on Instagram as well. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see you here. Glad you're joining us. Let us know you're here. Hey, Holly, I see you. Shannon, welcome. That House of Books. I love that name I see on Instagram. I know my house has lots of books too.
Oh, I love books.
I love them.
I think at one time we cleared out, my husband said, he said, you had 3,000 books, Diana. We got rid of 3,000 books. I'm like, yeah, I would love to live in a library. That would be heaven for me.
Mm-hmm.
Not literally, but that would be heavenly.
Yeah, I would love that too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I see we have some viewers on YouTube and Facebook. Hi, Heather. Betsy, welcome.
Yeah, I'm going to open up Instagram as well so I can see the comments.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So we're here with the topic, I feel so lonely. How can I find a community that believes me? And I am so grateful that Coach Diana was able to hop on with me today so that I'm not alone in this space. It's so much better to have connection and community with others. And so I'm glad you're all here.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. I don't know what everyone's doing, but it is a sunshiny day here in Ohio, and we have a little bit cooler weather. We're stepping into fall, and all that brings. It's a whole different feel, isn't it? And I think, when we talk about loneliness, Susan, or lonely, I don't know, but fall kind of, for me, enters into that time of year when I feel like hibernating a little bit. Maybe not in fall, but as we go into winter, especially in Ohio. I think one of the things I noticed when I go out west is that people are out and active year round when they're in the warmer, sunnier climates. But I don't know if you experience that in Michigan, but people kind of hibernate here in Ohio during the winter months.
Yeah, there can be some of that for sure. I live in a very active area where rain, sun, or snow,
really?
there are people, yes, out
Oh, I love that.
walking. Yeah, it's a very active area. I love that too, but I do know what you mean. I get that sense of winding down. I got to prepare my yard for the winter, right? There's that wind down that happens where I know that I'm going to be inside. I know that I'm not going to want to be outside putting up Christmas lights or trimming back bushes at some point because it's going to be too cold.
Yeah.
And so that sense of sort of isolation maybe is what you're referencing, is that we just kind of hide away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that may be a choice for some of you, right? That choosing to put yourself away, to hibernate, to slow down. But maybe it's not a choice. Maybe you really want to have those connections and be active, and it gets hard sometimes. So I thought we would just define loneliness. So we know what we're talking about. I know Diana and I both love definitions. So it's a subjective state of mind in which people desire more social contact, but feel disconnected or isolated from others.
Subjective. What does that indicate to you?
It's more about how you feel about your connectedness with others.
Yeah. So you like definitions. I do too. But the word subjective is curious to me.
Yeah. See what you find.
Well, that's not a great definition. I'm looking for one that will give us some. When I think of subjective, I think it's subject to my own interpretation. Rather, objective is, I think objective truth is, it's just fact. Whereas subjective, it pertains to my feelings, my perception, how I see things. And so I love that you said that, because loneliness is a state of mind and emotion, and it doesn't have to be permanent. It can be transitory, right? It can come and go. But I
Yes,
think when you're in it, it can feel very consuming
absolutely.
and heavy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a heaviness about it. And I don't know about y'all, but have you been lonely in a crowd? Or maybe you've been lonely in relationship, perhaps
Yeah.
even marriage. So you're not alone per se, but you still feel that disconnection.
Yeah. Here's another definite there's a lot of good definitions here, but one is that it's affected like your state of loneliness is affected by your personal views, your experience, or your background. So you might have come from a background or a family history of where you were alone a lot, or your current experiences physically you are alone a lot. But I love this piece that says personal views because that means that that's alterable, right? I mean, well, all of these things are. There are things we can do when we're feeling lonely. But I think, Susan, you and I have something in common where we're really prone toward just identifying what somatic states you feel in your body, right? And so so if I could ask you, we didn't plan this, ladies, but when you're noticing if and when you have ever felt lonely, what do you do with that from a somatic perspective? How do you honor that?
Hmm, that's a great question. Um, how do I honor it is really to give it attention, to notice it, to hold space for it, um, to put words to it, perhaps, even if only in my own mind,
Yeah.
to identify the place in which I feel lonely, right? Is
Mhm.
it a heart thing? Is it a stomach thing? Um, just really identifying it and giving myself a full picture of it.
I love
Yeah.
how you say that. So you take it all in by noticing where it's showing up in my body because it does, like
Mhm.
our emotions and our feelings reside somewhere in our body and they can be in more than one place. But also you said hold space for it. Could you expand that a little bit? What does hold space for it mean for someone who doesn't really talk that kind of language?
Mm. Yeah, I use that phraseology quite a lot, but it could be confusing for sure. Is give it time, space, and energy, is what I mean. Does that
So
make sense?
yeah, so if I'm feeling lonely and I'm giving it time, space, and energy, one thing I'm thinking that you mean by that is I'm not going to use a distraction.
Mm,
I'm gonna
yeah.
just sit with it. And I'm not so maybe some distractions or ways of moving out of it or stuffing it would
Mhm.
be when I think of stuffing, I think of food. It's the greatest distraction and stuffing our emotions, right?
For
Or
sure.
distractions, from not giving space to it would be, staying busy.
Mhm.
Often we stay so busy that we're a ball of emotions that we're not really even knowing are there. They're just kind of shoved down.
Mhm.
And yeah, no, I like that. Thanks. I think that
Yeah.
would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that we just get to be live here and authentic with you all. And I would love for you all to do that as well. But I do want to remind you this is Leslie Vernick's public page. However, you
Mhm.
are viewing us, it is public. And so the comments you put in the chat can be viewed by anybody. If you want to interact, ask a question that is more personal or private, please go to leslievernick.com/question/. We would love to answer questions related to loneliness and finding community. Um, and we will be reading in the chat too. How does loneliness impact you? What is your experience with it? And perhaps what is your answer to Diana's question? Where do you
Mm.
feel it in your body? How do you notice it? And what do you do with it?
Yeah. How do you relate to loneliness? Where does it show up? What do you do with it when it shows up? So I think what we're doing is spending some time really just identifying that lonely is a common experience, right? I mean,
It
we
is.
all have it. Um, I've had moments in my life or periods in my life where I've had intense loneliness um,
Mhm.
around certain events. Maybe the death of a loved one or children leaving to go do their lives, the loss of a pet. That you might think would be grief, but I think along with that grief is loneliness. because it's the absence of something that I'm or someone that I'm very fond of that
Mhm.
has had a significant space in my life, in my heart. Oh, mercy, I just had a bird hit my window, sorry.
We could hear that.
Did you? Oh
Yeah.
gosh. I'm gonna put some things up on the window so they don't run into it, but that one made a mistake.
Mm. Yeah, so that ability to notice it, we got distracted by the bird there for a minute and lost my train of thought.
Me too.
Yes, but, an empty space, I like that wording that you said.
Mhm.
Something used to fill that space, and now it's, sort of empty and, trying to figure out how to fill that, feel
Yeah,
the pain
or
of the
just
loss.
know well, the first thing I do, as we talked about, is just notice. Like you said, I put words to it. I coach myself. I've just learned
Mhm,
to coach myself through these things and to say, "Wow, you really miss her. You
mm,
feel lonely." And allow tears to flow if that's what needs to happen. It just happened to me the other day. I found myself missing my mom and remembering things we did, and I dreamt about her
mm,
and, and sat with that for quite a
mhm,
bit. Yeah, and at this phase in my life, all most of my loved ones, my elders are not here any longer. My aunts and uncles are gone, our parents are gone, um, and so just noticing that there is a very physical and, spiritual absence. I know we carry them with us, but so just noticing all the ways in which I experience lonely. But, Susan, the one thing that's helped me all along the way, and maybe some of you in the chat, I think, are saying you felt that way your whole life, and maybe we could talk a little bit about that. But for me, what I've noticed is that these emotions, they're transient, they come and they go and they flow. There's not, and sometimes you might be in a space where your emotion feels like it's just persistent. But I feel like typically what happens for most of us is these emotions, they come and they go, and how we deal with them matters.
mhm,
And who we deal with them with matters as well. And so, having supportive others or having supportive conversations and coaching in your own mind and heart can be the difference between how heavy and how much of a hold it takes on me and how long it lingers,
mhm,
and how I adapt and become resilient through it.
mhm. Yeah, we do need that community. We've said before, and
Yeah,
probably often that we get hurt in relationships, but we heal in relationships. And so doing that work with people who love us and support us is important, right? And oftentimes when we've been hurt, we lose connection with ourselves and we don't have that ability really to hold space, to use that phrase again, hold space for ourselves and pay attention. And like Diana was saying, validate our own feelings, right?
yeah,
You said when you coach yourself and you talk to yourself and say, it's okay, you miss her, right? It's
oh,
validating to be able to say that to somebody else, but also to say it to yourself. It matters, right? To treat those
absolutely.
feelings as if they are important because they are
Mhm.
important, right? And to be able to acknowledge them and put words. And I like that you're drawing the connection between loss and loneliness because I think those do feel somewhat similar in the body, right?
Well, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
A missing connection, right? There's a loss of connection.
Yeah, especially when it's someone that you have loved, that you have lived with, that you have let into your inner circle and in your heart. Yeah. So, I mean, even though we do talk and we work in this space of people who sometimes often are creating separation in an effort to get their own wellness or their well-being, from maybe separation from someone who's been destructive in ways or difficult or even abusive, that doesn't mean that you're not entering lonely. Because even though sometimes it can be a difficult and destructive place to be, um, change is hard and living alone is hard.
Mm.
or, the absence of sometimes moving on, moving out, moving forward leaves you in a space where, the kids are no longer around. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you did that. You just did that this year, didn't you?
Last year, yes, I've been an empty nester for over a year. Yeah, and you're dealing with that as well. Yeah,
Mhm.
I live alone, right? So there are opportunities to feel lonely for sure in that.
I agree.
But also, you can be lonely with someone, right? If there can still be loss of connection, lack of connection when you're in relationship to somebody who may be a destructive person or a very immature person who's indifferent towards you. You can still feel lonely.
Mm. So, yeah. Wow, we both can resonate with that. And I love your attitude toward how you move through that.
Mhm. I think moving through it, I think, is important, right? Like you
Yeah.
mentioned before, not pushing it away, and not getting stuck in it as well. So when I'm talking about holding space, I'm not talking about nurturing those negative thoughts and negative feelings. I am saying to hold space for them to move through, right? That transient state you're talking about is because our emotions do have a rise and fall to them. And that peak can feel so intense. But if we don't hang on to it, it will move on.
Well, yeah, and I've been on both sides of that spectrum. I've been in places where, especially certainly when the kids left, where, I hesitate to even say sometimes what the thoughts are that I could anchor on, but I've learned the power of your narrative and
Mhm.
being careful about what you tell yourself about your situation. Yeah, I don't even want to go there with this live, but sometimes, I have thought, geez, my life is over. What do I do
Mhm.
now? And if you anchor on that, or who am I now that I don't have this role or whatever, if you anchor on that, can you imagine how you would spiral and lose your purpose, your grounding, your sense of who God made you to be? And yeah, so we want to offer hope for you if that's where you're at, that, there are tools and there are others who are walking in this journey, and you don't have to walk this journey alone. We're not meant to walk alone in life. And a friend and a brother, or a sister, as we would say, can hold you up in times of deep despair. And
Mhm.
I think, you know, so who are those others in your life that you walk in community with? Do
Mhm.
you have others in your life that will hold you up, that will validate you, that just can be with you? When I think about bearing one another's burdens, I don't think it means I take on your burdens, but if you were to call me and you were to say, gee, I'm really having a hard time, my son's not coming home for Christmas or whatever, I would be with you in that,
Mhm.
you know?
And
And
I know that, and it is very comforting to know that, and so even though when Diana and I are not together or not communicating, I have this security that if I needed her and I reached out, she would be there.
yeah,
And there's something very comforting in that and reassuring when I feel lonely is that I do have people to access to help with that. And I hope you're all thinking about who are those people in your life
mm,
that you have. And, because uh, our population, our ministry is geared toward women who are in destructive relationships, that can be challenging
right,
because not everybody understands the dynamics of power and control, of abuse. They don't really know what destruction means or what it looks like. And so that can be very isolating when
yeah,
you're not understood and you feel judged for what you're going through and people are giving you wrong advice. It can really move you into those negative thought patterns that you could anchor in and feel disconnected and lonely in this life. So I do think it is important to find a community that understands what you're going through. That's really why we're here today. Um, is to invite you into a community who understands what it means to be in a destructive relationship and to feel lonely and disconnected. And we want to help you with that. Not only connect to others who understand, but begin to connect with yourself if you've lost that, and to connect with God. I saw somebody ask in the chat, can loneliness be about being disconnected from God? And I do think that for sure. We have that resource. If we're believers, that resource within us to feel connected to something greater than we are, that understands, who's all knowing, all present with us.
Absolutely.
Powerful.
I flipped through Instagram quite a bit. I, like to listen to the quips and stuff. And I think he was a researcher, a Christian, basically saying that the statistics showed that there was no difference in someone's life if they read the Bible 1 time a week, even if they read the Bible up to 3 times a week. But he suggested that 4 times a week or more had a significant impact on your level of depression. And when I think about loneliness, and what you said is so true. So, we want to connect to God and receive his comfort. And we do that through the word of God. And then, I'm also reminded that we experience, I was curious, like, what does it mean to like show the love of Christ or to experience the love of Christ? And when I just did a little mini search on that, what I realized was that we experience the love of Christ from one another. And that is the purpose of the body of Christ. And so I'm hoping that for those of you that are in our community, certainly our Conquer community, or those of you that have joined us in our coaching groups, that you truly experience the love of Christ in the context of those communities, because that's how we're built up. And that's where you will receive some comfort from maybe walking out some difficult journeys by yourself. That's the biggest thing, really, of being in a group that is like-minded, that has similar values, and in this case, similar experiences, is that you become aware that you're not alone. And I think the enemy really likes to isolate us. I know, for me, isolation is dangerous, which is why I talk about isolation in the winter. I have strategies in place so that I don't feel isolated when I don't want to be in the cold, and which prevents me from being around other people. So what are some of your strategies? Those of you that are listening, we have quite a few of you out there between all 3 of the modalities that we're on. What are some of your strategies that you use when you're feeling lonely? I'm curious.
Yeah, great question. And as they're generating that in the chats, someone has asked, not everybody knows how to find a safe person. Would you talk a little bit about finding somebody who's safe?
Well, that's a great question. Finding a safe person. I think many of us, myself included, in the past, have just assumed all people are safe. And so when I would meet them, I would be an open book. And so I think finding a safe person takes time. And it takes time in terms of you testing that relationship. And we did this actually in our Walking Core Strength group when we talked about who are our wise others. And so we made a whole list of what a wise person that we could let into our life and walk with that. And one of the things we said was they would be someone who doesn't talk about other people. They would be someone who holds confidences. They would be someone that that was loving and not harming to us. So I've had some unsafe friendships in my life in the past, and I will describe what that dynamic sounds like. So I've had, sarcasm, demeaning comments. I don't know. What else comes to your mind, Susan?
Reactivity.
Yes. I think, I always talk about safety and trust. I would not engage in a relationship of deep openness with someone who didn't meet me at that level. I'm always wary about of a person who doesn't want to disclose anything, but they want me to lay my guts bare. That just doesn't feel comfortable or safe for me. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned that like-mindedness, right? The
Mhm.
people who are on similar journeys. Um, and I think that helps, right? People who want to be healthy, who want to be regulated,
Yes,
who want to be
regulated.
trustworthy,
Yeah,
right? Um, and so that is one thing that happens in our Conquer support group and education group is people are training to be safe people,
I would
right?
agree. Yeah.
And so there is some safety in that, knowing that you're going to a group where everybody is on the journey to be safe and trustworthy, that they want to be healthy. And within the support group, we have checks and balances to make sure that happens. So there's guidelines on what to share, how to share, things to stay away from. There are incredible mentors within that group who are monitoring those chats to make sure that things are healthy uh,
Yeah.
and safe. And so that's something that I personally love about what's happening in our Conquer support group is that we have lots of things in place to make sure that it's safe.
And I want to say, as I'm looking at the chat, I see good comments. Like someone who is selfish by nature obviously is not someone that I would feel comfortable with or safe. But we also want to, and also the comment was that Jesus is the only safe, truly safe person. I want to be careful and gracious of the fact that I'm not going to be all those things 100% of the time.
Mm,
My heart's goal and my heart's desire is to be a safe woman who builds up other women first and then other people. And hopefully, if you're in a reciprocal and loving relationship, someone will call you out in a nice, kind way, and you're amenable to changing how you do that dance and becoming healthier. So I guess I want to make some room for us to be human. And I
mhm,
think a person is safe if they can own their errors and
mhm,
they can make amends, and act in a process of repentance. So I just want to make room for us to be human.
mm.
Yeah.
We are. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just reading some things in the
Me
chat.
too. So we have an Instagram follower saying her closest two friends are people who show her a lot of grace. I need grace, and I also need truth. So there are people I invite into my lives who I say, hit me with the truth. I don't care how it comes. I just want to hear how you're experiencing me so I can grow.
Mm,
Um, and she's saying that they don't have high expectations that she will fail trying to achieve. Yeah. So unrealistic expectations, people who can be understanding of your limits, feel safe. I
mhm,
recall I had a friend was going through quite a bit, and I called her, and we were supposed to meet. Actually, she was in town, and I said, I just don't feel like I have it. Like I was exhausted, and explained a few things that I had, on my plate. And she said, "Oh my goodness, Diana, go take a nap and rest. We'll meet another time." And that was just such a loving response for her to hear that I had a need, even though she had a need. Um,
mhm,
and that was just a nice, welcome invitation. And yeah,
mhm,
that to me said my friend is a safe person who
mhm,
can have my best interest in mind, even in a time when she was looking forward to being with me.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that example. Yeah, of safety.
Mhm.
Somebody who sees you, who cares about you.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
was not selfish. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So here's one for you. I'd love a definition of regulated in this context. Is that no, I lost it.
Was that on Facebook?
That you are aware of and responsible for your behavior. Yes. So regulated, what we're talking about is that your emotions and your thoughts don't gain control. Is that you can notice your feelings, your thoughts, but they're not driving your behavior. That you still have control of the woman you want to be. You have control of your behavior. How would you describe that differently?
You got the behavior and the thoughts thing. I would say regulated also is if your thoughts and your behavior aren't regulated, neither is your body. So your
That's true.
heart rate's going to be accelerated. Your whole nervous system's going to be, I've had some people vibrating, like
Mhm.
not in a good way.
Mhm.
And she'll be activated. It's your activated response. Like I need to be either fighting or I need to be fleeing. We want to be in that zone of calm,
Yeah.
curious, and and mindful. So, and for those of you who haven't worked on regulation, really what we're talking about is the state of I don't know, how do we describe that, Susan? The state of hmm,
What's the word you're searching for? Well-being, rest and digest.
yeah, all of those. Really, it's we use the term window of tolerance.
Mm.
It's your body's ability to be in that place where your prefrontal cortex is engaged, your emotions aren't activated and usurping your ability to think clearly. Um, and I don't know, have you ever been with someone who just when you're with them, you just experience an inability to be calm and restful?
Mm. Yes, chaotic people,
Yes.
dysregulated people. It is hard to be with them because we bounce off each other in terms of our energies, right? And so
Right.
it takes extra effort to remain calm and peaceful when there's somebody that's chaotic. It is possible, but I also think that it is a bit draining.
Or anger, like an intense angry response is a dysregulated state. Yeah.
Mm.
Somebody who's extremely fearful, that's a dysregulated state. And when you're with someone like that, if you start paying attention, you really notice it. You feel it when you're with someone like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we talk about dysregulated, I think I'm g- I think Susan, pretty much how you appear on screen, just this calm,
Mhm.
that's kind of an example of what regulation looks like. Like I'm
Mhm.
here, I'm present, I'm available, and my body is saying all is good.
Well, thanks for noticing that, and I think you present that way as well, and, you
So
know, I think all of us can put that on, when we need to, right? We're on a live, we're not gonna show up dysregulated in this space, but, what happens when we're in private or in difficult conversations? Can we maintain that regulation? It takes work, it takes training, but again, it is possible to be able to do that. And so I want to encourage you all, you can train in that. I see in the chat a lot of people talking about needing regulation techniques and needing to practice this within the Conquer membership. If
yeah,
you're interested, there are numerous videos to help you with things like emotional regulation, with the window of tolerance, the things that we're talking about today. You can get education, you can get handouts to help you begin to train in being regulated.
yeah. So we did ask earlier, what communities are you involved in, or are you connected to that help you when you're feeling lonely?
Mhm.
Um, and and how, Susan, how do you define community?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. Community, a group of people who has a mutual goal, perhaps, who is caring and supporting of one another. Yeah. What else would you add to that?
Well, I pulled up some definitions. I think you got it. You got it. Like it's a unified body of people who have common interests.
Yeah.
It could be professional, but we're talking. I don't know that I would label what we're talking about here professional. But for me, a community is where two or more are gathered. maybe
Yeah.
maybe more than two, but yeah, yeah. And so I have a community of friends. I have different communities in my life. I have a community of professionals that I meet with. I have a community of believers who are interested in leadership and living out their life. So I have several communities that I'm engaged in. Some I pay for, some I just, they're my friends and we meet together. Um, yeah. So, and many of you have your church community, and hopefully that is a healthy place where you can be heard and whatever you bring to the table is fully understood and embraced in a way that makes you feel safe
Mhm.
and helps you to feel supported. Um, Leslie, when I wish we had her on here to talk about how she developed this Conquer community and I'll just recall for you what I heard her say. Like,
Mhm.
she was meeting with ladies regularly and individually, and she found that she was saying the same thing over and over again, and they all had such common needs that she started a small group for them. And it was very small. And within a short amount of time, maybe it's been a decade, I don't really know the exact time, but it has grown to a community of several thousand members. And women come, they grow, they find support, and then when they're ready to go, they go. But they don't go alone. Many of the women that I've had a chance to get to know have found women in other states or even locally and have formed deep friendships and have walked out many of life's challenges, or
Mhm.
really even many of life's wonderful experiences together. And so, if you're curious about Conquer, you can go to the Conquer sign up. We want to be here for you, not just to get you to sign up for Conquer, but we want to offer you something that you can take away today that is meaningful and helpful for you. Um,
Mhm.
but so
And we
this,
do have that up on the screen, but let me just say it for those of you
okay.
listening, leslievernick.com/conquer sign up. So you can sign up there, or you can just go to that page and read about Conquer, the things that we're sharing with you today.
So Elizabeth's saying she's got riding friends and going to the barn to see the horse. I wish I had that again. I used to when my kids were home. I leased a horse and oh my goodness, that was such a good experience. I wish I could do that again, finding some ladies to, ride with. Um, and Jenny's got a supportive church, a sister. It's always good to have sisters, Bible studies. You ladies have some communities you're in.
Mhm.
Grief share peeps, nice ideas. Um, Even my mayor is a community person I love. There we go.
Awesome. I like how you talked about, Diana, you have different communities for different needs, right? You have business needs, you have leadership needs, um, Bible study needs.
Mhm.
So you may find that you have community for certain things, ladies, but if you're struggling to find community for dealing with destructive relationship or understanding biblical truth in a way that's freeing and not limiting to you, this may be the avenue for that, a
Yeah.
specialty group to help you sort through very specific needs you may have. I think Leslie does a great job of talking about scripture, understanding scripture in a way that not all churches are willing to look at things. Um, so I know I hear from a lot of women, I've experienced it myself, is that twisting of scripture that sometimes happens to uphold the sanctity of marriage at all costs.
Yeah.
And it's devastating. It was devastating to me, and I know many of my clients have suffered because of that. And this is a community where we can investigate scripture together. We can talk about scripture. We encourage one another to seek the Lord personally and to understand for yourself. There's lots of guidance, and I love Leslie's wisdom that she brings. But we do encourage you to explore that yourself. And really to experience God and the Word for yourself in a new way.
Yeah. So, do we want to invite some questions?
Yeah, I do see one.
Okay. If you ladies have questions, you could go to leslievernick.com/question/ and you can ask them anonymously, or you can put questions in the chat. Either way is fine. We have some time left here to meet with you about that. And what other questions do you have about loneliness or community? Please feel free to step into that.
I'm just seeing in the chat, Jenny says, my pastor is incredible, but I cannot take up much bandwidth there. Yeah, so if you're feeling like your pastor has many, many people he has to take care of, and there's not the space for you, you may need extra support.
So saying that she's joined our community at Leslie Vernick and Company. Let's see, Kim's given a shout out to let's step into community, and I love that she mentioned hobbies. And that's interesting that she says that. I have found a wonderful woman, and I invited my sisters and a friend, and we would meet and we would do art glass. And I had hoped that the friendship would grow and that I would spend a lot of time with her. Unfortunately, the Lord took her home. But that was so fun. Just having women to just get together and do crafts with. I loved it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to go to ceramics. They had ceramic. I don't know if you remember this, but they had like a lot of ceramic places around, and they would just regularly one night a week. And we had when in the fellowship that I grew up in was just amazing. It was truly like I got saved when I was 19, and it was truly like the church should be. Like we hung out with one another a lot. We did holidays together, and one of the women's husband worked nights. So she would, like, when he had this long night shift, I think once a month, she would invite us all in. And I'm telling you, I was 20 at the time. And my mom, who's 35 years older than me, would come as well. And we would all just bring whatever crafts we were working on. And we would just stay till all hours of the early morning, and we would eat food. It was so wonderful. And I love that. So yeah, inviting ladies into your home.
Yeah, beautiful sense of community. And I see the joy radiating on your face. As you're talking about that, is that we all see the impact that had in your life and your mind. And I've been reading a lot about joy lately and how important it is for the brain development. And a huge part of that, we find joy in connection, right? Joy in connection with God, with others. And we need that in our lives in order for our brains to be functioning well.
We are totally built for relationship. All right. Yeah. It was good times. I would love to recreate that. I'll have to figure that out this winter. Yeah.
That's a good goal.
You going to come down to Ohio, Susan?
I do drive to Ohio once in a while. I'll have to see where you are on the map.
All right. Did we take a question, do you think?
Yeah. Can I read it?
Okay.
I've had to resort to doing things on my own because my husband doesn't care to do life with me, but I have a conflict with that. Then what's the point of being married? How do I reconcile the need to be married if I'm doing life alone? Great question.
How do I reconcile if I'm doing? Okay, I had to resort to doing things on my own because my husband doesn't care to do life with me.
Start with that.
Well, I think that all healthy relationships have periods of togetherness and separateness. So some of that is very, very healthy. But doing all things on your own does leave you with an empty, lonely feeling. And for me, it can be very confusing because here I am still married. I've got this person in my house, and yet I'm feeling so alone.
Mhm.
So I really just do resonate with what that experience must feel like, and how at times it can be confusing for us emotionally and physically and spiritually. And so you're saying that you have a conflict with that.
Mhm.
And so noticing that this is a conflict for me. For me, and I don't know if you agree, Susan, or maybe have a different perspective, but when I have a conflict about something, I need to figure out what I need to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, like what's not okay in this for me? And how do I resolve this conflict so I'm in a space where I can experience peace?
Mhm. Yeah.
And with saying, what is the point of being married? I would ask you that question. What is the point of being married? And how do you reconcile that in your mind? If you're going to choose to be in that relationship and do life alone, you can reconcile yourself to that. I'm going to stay in this for the purposes of whatever that might be, for the purposes of not living alone, for the purposes of coming home and having someone who maybe is there for me when I need to go to the hospital or whatever that might be. So we all have different ways of negotiating that.
Mhm.
But I do think the way that you talk to yourself about that can increase your suffering.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Some great thoughts there. But also maybe some wrestling to do with God. What is the point of being married? What is God's point in us being married? What is his desire for us?
Mm,
Is to have deep, loving connection with one another, true intimacy. That's not happening in your marriage. And I feel very sad for you in that, because I think that is God's point with giving us marriage. Um, but do you need to be married? I think that speaks to what Diana is saying. What is your need to be married?
yeah,
Do you need financial stability? Do you need someone looking out for your health and well-being? Someone at home? You may have need to stay married, and it's okay to acknowledge that, um, and then to set your expectations. Perhaps this conflict that you're having will spur you to have a conversation, and we have very limited information here. Perhaps you've already had conversations with him. You're saying he doesn't care to do life with you, but how it's impacting you, um, in
yeah,
terms of not having a biblical marriage, a marriage that's deeply intimate, and perhaps inviting him into something new, inviting him into growth and seeing if that happens. If he doesn't accept the invitation for that, do you have to be alone in life? I think we can always find community. We can find girlfriends, family members, so that we aren't alone, even though we're not doing intimate things with a husband, perhaps, is that you find other ways to find joy and connection so that you don't feel alone. And
yeah,
that's more of that mindset thing, right? Is, do you have to be alone? Do you have to do life alone?
yeah. And what is the need to be married? I'm curious about that. Like, what's the need to be married? Do you have a need to be married? And if so, what is it? Identify that and then make a clear choice. I'm choosing this because I need to be married for these purposes. And yes, I am doing life alone. Is very, very different to carry than to say, what's the point of being married? I'm all alone. You hear the difference? I
Mhm.
mean, for me, it's just like a whole different way of walking. So, how we wrap our brain around this makes all the difference to our emotional well being.
Mhm.
Uh, and I want to thank the Jesus Gypsy. She's testifying on Instagram about the helpfulness of the Conquer group, and it looks like she did some small groups with us as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Go ahead. I've got a question on Instagram if you want me to ask it.
Yeah, maybe the one I'm looking at. Go ahead and read it.
How do I avoid? Okay.
Yeah.
How do I avoid walking into another controlling relationship just because I'm lonely? I have friends that have this tendency. It's not just a marriage issue.
Absolutely. Great question. Also, part of that is doing your work. to be able to hold space for that feeling of loneliness, to not ignore it, and not to hang on to it, anchor in it, but just to notice it and be mindful of your tendency to want to jump into a relationship to distract yourself from your feelings. It may cause you to ignore some red flags because you just want to be with someone, right?
Yeah.
And so I think mindfulness and personal growth, Conquer is not just for married women. So I want you to know that. Conquer may be for you as well. So I hope you go to leslievernick.com/Conquer sign up just to check it out. It's about being healthy and growing beyond destructive relationships as well. So if you've been in destructive relationships and you know what that's like, you're probably prone to be in them again. And so you want to make sure that you understand what went on and that you get healthy so that you don't overlook red flags.
Yeah.
What thoughts do you have, Diana?
I have a lot of thoughts about that. When you mention controlling relationships, how do you avoid walking into them? I think you need to invite walking alone for a while. Like if my option is controlling relationships or walking alone, I need to tolerate the uncomfortableness of being lonely until I find healthy others that I can invite into my life. And that's a common experience for people when they're making healthier choices about relationships, is sometimes they find themselves walking very alone for a while until they have healthy others filling that space.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little bit concerned about what about you invites others to come in and control? There's some growth work to do there. And there are lots of tools that need to come on board, maybe some questions you can ask yourself. But I think walking in with someone in that can be very helpful for you, because sometimes we don't see what we need to see and we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So whether you do some individual work with someone on that, or you decide to dive into the educational and support group that we have, there might be many topics on that could help you to investigate that as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think having a relationship with yourself is very important. Knowing yourself well, caring for yourself well,
I love that.
To yourself is so important. And when you're in a controlling relationship, you lose that, right? Somebody else is telling you what to think, how to be, and you lose that sense of connection with yourself that I think is so important. And it puts you susceptible to finding someone else to replace the control because you don't know how to do it yourself.
Can you say more about what it's like to have a relationship with yourself? I think that's such a good comment.
Well, it has to do with things we've already been talking about: holding space for yourself, showing up for yourself, talking to yourself compassionately, kindly, respecting your own boundaries.
What are some ways you do that? Because I know you do that well.
I think it's about knowing when I need sleep, knowing the kind of nutrition that helps me feel good. It's about making sure that I get exercise and that I attend to emotions, that I have space for that, and that I keep connected with God, right? That I keep my thoughts aligned with His thoughts, and I have boundaries with my own thoughts, not letting them get carried away, right?
I like
with
that.
untruths or awful thinking about the future. That I don't live in the past with shame and regret, but I hold myself to being present to the here and now.
There was so much there. That was so good. Thanks.
Thank you.
You gave like a bazillion different tips right there. That was good. I love having boundaries with my own thoughts. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and my thoughts are just zinging all over. And this morning I said, no, Diana, we're not going there. Yeah.
Yeah, like a good parent, right? We are
Yes.
going
He's
there.
like,
That's not
"Oh,
healthy
no."
for you,
Yeah,
honey.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because it's automatic. You don't have control over that in terms of what pops in, but what we do with it. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Um, we have just a couple minutes left. I want to take one more question.
Yes. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I was emotionally, verbally, and physically abused by my first husband. I'm now verbally and emotionally abused by my second husband. I continue to feel so lonely. And I'm afraid to talk with anybody, including a therapist. What steps can I take to open up to a therapist or even both of my adult sons about what is really going on? And
Mm,
I think that's a pretty deep question. Um, but I think the first steps that you can take is to speak truth to yourself.
yeah.
Maybe write a narrative on a piece of paper of what you're experiencing before you talk to someone else about it. Um, I will say, if you're wanting to find someone to help you through that, whether that's a therapist or a coach, that you want to find someone that you feel safe with, that you feel seen with, and that doesn't have an agenda for you, but helps you decide what you need. It sounds like you know what you need. I first need to just talk about what's happening to me.
Mhm. Yeah. So going back to a relationship with yourself, just some things, some guesses I may have
Mhm.
about what's going on here is that you're isolating, perhaps because you got some big feelings and you haven't held space for those feelings. So perhaps shame about what's going on in your marriage. And so until you really give yourself the compassion you need and validate what's going on, it's going to be hard for you to face truth and move forward. So if you can't admit truth to yourself, connect to yourself, it's going to be hard for you to do that with someone else.
Good job. I know we just have a couple minutes, but I do have a hard stop, and I'll need a few minutes in between. So,
Mhm.
are you needing to go as well?
Yeah, I can take the 3 minutes. If you need to drop off, Diana, I just want to ask everybody, what is your takeaway today? So, Diana, it's okay if you need to go. I
All
appreciate you.
right. Thanks, everybody. I will see you tomorrow at noon. Oh, no, no. I'll be here Friday at noon. Tomorrow's only Thursday. Have a
Is
great
it
day.
noon Friday?
It is noon Friday.
Okay,
Thanks for
awesome.
having me, Susan.
Yeah, glad you could be here. Ladies, I'm still here with you for just a couple minutes. What is your takeaway? What's been beneficial about your time that you've spent with us? Maybe just having a moment to connect with yourself, to be present and think about how you may be feeling, to ponder this concept of loneliness. Perhaps you have gone to leslievernick.com/conquer sign up and just checked it out. I hope that's true. There is a live tomorrow, Thursday, October 3rd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time with Coach Leanne. She's going to be talking about how do I get someone to care how I feel. So another great topic. Yeah, Gigi, thanks. Loneliness is temporary. We can do something about it. Absolutely. Thank you for putting that in the chat. Spending time with yourself. I hope that's a takeaway that you're going to put into an action step for yourself. So, Sandy, what might that look like? What might time with yourself look like? And Jenny, thanks for asking those questions for everybody to see and for you to ask yourself, what are you telling yourself? What reality are you facing? Is it true, honorable? Yes, and really getting in touch with your feelings. It's been good to be with you here today. I know I'll see you all again. I hope you're able to join Conquer. Doors are open until Friday. I believe the end of the day on Friday. They won't open again until the spring. It's an incredible program. I've read several of you putting plugs in the chat about how much you've gotten out of Conquer. I really appreciate that. So again, ladies, thanks for being here. Hopefully you'll join tomorrow again at 7:30 Eastern time with Coach Leanne. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Bye.